of that. So today I want to talk about just really leading through a crisis and really that resilience and that well-being is a big part of our lives, and obviously the mindset of a corporate athlete really comes into play now, as well as as an elite college coach and now a senior executive coach. I have always flourished under pressure and change, and we are all going through a rapid pace of change, massive change, whether it's physically, mentally, emotionally, experiencing things that we've never been before. And so really, developing that mindset of a corporate athlete is important in a normal world, but we are definitely not in a normal time right now. And to be able to perform at high levels over the long haul, training systematically, a multi-level way that elite athletes, that takes performance management. And so if we are learning anything about ourselves as far as performance management right now, being able to manage in our day-to-day in a normal world, we're definitely not in a normal world right now. So really thinking about what that performance management looks like is really, really important to really incorporate now into your day, into your personal and your professional life. So when we go back to the normalcy, we can even be so much more effective. And rooted in 3 decades of work with elite athletes and getting them individually and also as a team to perform that performance management and peak performance on a daily basis, on a yearly basis. As a coach, I addressed the body, the mind, the emotional side of it, and also the spiritual side of it as a coach. And so this is what we are expected to do as executives, as corporate athletes as well. And if we have any idea, Edith, I think I said this to you the other day on social media, is if we have any idea how tough it is right now for all of us to be navigating all of the body, the emotions, the mind, and the spiritual side of things, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. It's tough to do right now. And if we have any idea how tough it is, we're actually getting ourselves prepared to go back to work even bigger, faster, and stronger. But we're preparing ourselves right now because we are getting tougher. We are way uncomfortable, and we're learning so much about how to take care of ourselves and what we need in those 4 different areas more than ever. So we are expected as executives to perform at a peak performance day after day, quarter after quarter, year after year, season after season, client after client, new boss after new boss, new structure after new structure, new product after new product, new teams after new teams, and new leadership after new leadership. And I actually presented this to a company yesterday, and they were going through every single one of these, as far as the peak performance that we're expected to do each and every day. So if you're joining us just now, welcome. And if you guys can all mute yourselves as you're joining us, that would be great. So these skills of a corporate athlete and resilient skills will be particularly useful in the coming year. And I know that all of us are preparing and planning, and long before we know, we're planning on what that new operating rhythm is going to look like, what that new operating rhythm is going to be for this year. How do we come back to work? How do we work together as teams when we go back? How do we find that new rhythm now, as we all are planning now is when we go back to work? So these are all the things that we're expected to do as elite athletes, but also as executives. These are the things that we're expected to do day after day, quarter after quarter, even in the situation that we're in right now. And so when things do get tough, and this is for athletes as well, and now as corporate athletes, we have this amygdala in our brain as we either fight or we flight. And, we teach as a coach, and I was telling this company that I was working with yesterday that, as a college coach, I spent more time, and I was very fortunate to have strength and conditioning coaches, so that, training the body was really never part of my job as a coach, especially as I got along further in my career and got into a Power 5 school. And, the bigger school that you get, you have so many more resources that are around you. I had strength and conditioning coaches that took care of the body, to train my players. So that physical part of it was extremely important, and we're going to talk about that in a little bit. But all of the nutritionists that we had that was part of our program took care of the body, and the sports psychologists that I had to wear that hat sometimes, but we had to really teach and train the fight or flight. And so if we are finding ourselves in a fight or flight mode, especially when you get into a crisis, that's part of that amygdala part in your brain, and it's a real thing. And there's so many different things right now where when things get tough, this is a real thing. You either fight it or you're running for the hills. And this is, you see leaders that are, there's some situations where leaders are absent. They're not communicating. They're not showing maybe their faces on the video screen. There's different ways that leaders are maybe not leading in this period, or how they're treating their people. I have a client that is I'm a physician coach as well. So I coach a number of physicians. And during this time, there's physicians that are being repurposed to either the front lines or helping with COVID-19, that if you're a different type of physician and you're not supposed to see those types of clients, they're repurposing you. And there's a number of doctors that are putting the out of the office sign, whether it's on their computer or somewhere, that they are running for the hills because they want nothing to do with this. So really our true colors come out during this time. And there's so many different competencies that we really can strengthen this muscle in this fight or flight, because it really is a real thing. And there's necessary skills. There's skills necessary for performance greatness and professional greatness. And I don't want to say just for professional greatness, also for personal greatness as well. And one that executives seek for themselves, their employees, and throughout their companies. This is employee engagement, this is resilience, this is retention, this is mental health. These are all the things that the executives really are striving for, that really are trained in those elite athletes. These are skills that are necessary for personal and professional greatness in the face of ever increasing pressure, the rapid change that is happening, and then we're also in the middle of a crisis. So people really flourish, under pressure, and other people fold. And so we really have to really frame our mindset. And I'm big into it. I'm a mindset coach, and really how we approach really being that corporate athlete and really implementing those things that we really need to implement on our personal and our professional lives to be those best long-term performers that we need to tap into, not just the neck on up, that it's not just a mental game. It's not just emotional intelligence. It's not just, one or two things. It's a number of things that we need to take a complete holistic approach to. So when you think of the elite athletes, if we just trained the physical part of the athlete, and I always say, from the neck on down, that's 20% of our success. If we are just going for a walk or we're just exercising, we are working on that part of our holistic health. But there's so many different aspects on how those elite athletes can perform at such a high level. And now the executives, and one thing I want to talk to about executives, when I was crossed over to the other side from the sports world with almost 3 decades of experience, and now I get over to this side and working with executives, there is such a big difference on what is expected from all of you and for executives in this world, and now through a crisis, and when we really haven't done that systematic training, or we don't understand how about our mental health, or we're just trying to plow through things. And when you look at things, for the difference between elite athletes is you look at their competition. There's only just a few hours each and every day that they're actually competing. And so if you are a former athlete, or if you watch sports or anything like that, put that in the chat box is you know, what you, if you've got kids that play sports, what are those sports? Put those in the chat box and share with me what those are. And as I talk with you through these, when you think of elite athletes and the training and really developing that mindset, elite athletes are really only competing for a few hours a day. You know, they have seasons off. Yes, they're, you know, elite athletes have full seasons, they train full seasons, but they're actually competing only a couple hours a day. And when you go and you look at executive leaders are competing day in and day out, 10, 12, 14 hours a day, every single day. And the only time that they get off is their 3 or 4 or 5 weeks of vacation. You know, executives are working all the time and competing all the time. And so these competencies that I'm going to go over with you today are so critical, even more so for executives than they were for professional athletes. I had a couple players, and I still do have a couple players that are playing in the pros. And, you know, their lifetime as professionals are, if they're lucky, are 14 or 15 years. And that is a long career for a professional athlete. And so they are taking care of their mind, their bodies, their spirit, their souls, their everything to be able to make it for 14 or 15 years. You look at Tom Brady, you look at Drew Brees, you look at the Lindsay Whalens, you look at the Diana Taurasi's and the Sue Birds, and some of those athletes that have the luxury of possibly competing for 15, maybe 20 years if they've done everything right. But I think I can name about five or maybe 10 of those athletes that have lasted that long. And when you cross over into the executive world, we have extremely long careers. We're doing this 10, 20, 25, 30, 35 years where we are forced to compete every single day at a high level. And from my first slide, day after day, season after season, quarter after quarter, 10 to 14 hours a day that you're expected to compete. And think of, when is your season off? You know, when is your season off as an executive? And so it's so important to really wrap your mind around what this looks like and how important it is for all of us to really take care of ourselves, and really developing that corporate mindset. So I really want to share with you 4 core competencies today for executives that are incorporated into elite athletes in order to perform at such a high level, to be successful, to get to their Final Fours. Elite athletes are extremely focused, extremely disciplined, extremely bought in, very passionate to their art and to their jobs. And these are the things that even executives, and after I explained all of that, like day after day over the course of decades, that executives are expected to perform and to compete every single day, sometimes without a day off, or a season off, or a year off, or anything like that. But here's 4 competencies in increasing capacity and bringing talent and skills to full ignition to sustain that peak performance that all of you are really looking for. And so one thing before I get into this, it's an extremely holistic approach into what we're doing. It's a holistic approach. It's not just one thing, it's not just 2 things, but it's a holistic approach for all of us to be able to compete at a high level every single day. It's the whole person at all levels to increase the capacity for that ideal performance state, that peak performance. And, you know, people have heard of, you know, probably more of the science or the academic area, that flow, finding the flow. And I think in the sports world, it's finding the zone. It's being in that zone, knowing that you have prepared yourself for all of these 4 core competencies. And you can't perform over time at such a high level to your potential without a cost to yourself, to your teams, and also to your organizations and companies. And, you know, some people think stress is a bad thing. And as I said before, when we first started this call, I always flourished under stress. I always flourished under pressure. And I ran towards stress. I run towards pressure because I excel in it. But stress is an energy expenditure that drains our tanks. But we have to also, all of us, think how we recover. We're all under stress. We're under stress every day. Our stress is defined differently for what our lives look like, whether, you know, in a normal situation we have stress, but we have stress every single day with the things that we are trying to navigate and deal with every single day. So how are we recovering that energy renewal? And stress in sports is a stimulus for growth. And if you can think of stress in your life, it's a stimulus for growth. How many of us, type in the chat box, how many of us have taken the stress that we are facing either at home or at work, and we have allowed for this to help us grow and to stretch ourselves and to be innovative and to think out of the box? And so stress is a stimulus for growth, but if we have chronic stress and we are not taking care of ourselves, just think what would happen. You know, it depletes those energy, it depletes those energy reserves. Nothing is filling your bucket. You have an empty gas tank. You will burn out, that fatigue and burnout. I've experienced burnout as a coach. I know one time, but I'm sure I have experienced burnout a number of times. I just didn't know it at the time. It was part of the territory. And this ultimately undermines, you know, all of our performance. And so if we can think about some of these things, these 4 competencies, are you implementing these into your life every single day? And we all can do better. We all can do more in some of these 4 competencies. But this is, you know, this is the difference between, you know, elite athletes and executives. And I'll say it one more time because I really want you to understand this. And I really had to wrap my own mind around this as well, that executives do this day in and day out for 10 to 12 to 14 hours a day for 10 to 20 to 30 to 40 years. And with the pressure and the unrealistic expectations, and now in the middle of a crisis, elite athletes perform a couple hours a day. They have seasons off. They have lower stress points. Their seasons last 14 to maybe 15 years if they're lucky as professional athletes. In college, it's 4 or 5 years. And so how do we do it? Just really magnifies what we're doing as executives, that these things have to be implemented into our lives for us to be able to compete and manage our performance on a daily basis, year after year after year, quarter after quarter after quarter. So we are not experiencing that burnout where it's undermining our performance. And elite athletes have the skill sets and the coaches to do that. Executives don't have that skill set and almost no training around some of these competencies. And sometimes only the best executives have coaches, or the ones that want to be the best have coaches, or they have coaches for their teams. So if we can wrap our mind around the best athletes and the elite athletes, those elite teams all have coaches to help them with these 4 competencies, and they have some time off. Executives don't. So the first core competency is our physical health. And this is the basic foundation. It's the foundation that holds your house up. It's the basic foundation that holds your body up. That we have to have some type of of physical activity, and our physical health is so important to our overall well-being. And this is in a normal day, and we are actually in the middle of a crisis. This helps us fill our buckets, increase our energy levels, mentally, physically, emotionally, gives us confidence. It does so much for our bodies, and it's not just exercising or going for a walk or anything like that. It is, how are we fueling our body with sleep and nutrition and all of those things. So what positive rituals, and I want you to type it in the chat box, is a lot of people are going for extra walks. They're walking their dogs so much. My dogs are actually hiding under the bed because I take my dogs for so many walks right now. But what are we doing to increase our physical health during, I would say, a normal time, but what are we doing for our own physical health during times of crisis? And type it in the chat box, and I'll have Coach Amy share what some of you are doing. But this is the basic foundation, really, for us to do the capacity of the work that we need to do mentally and physically. So Coach Amy, if there's anything in the chat box, you want to unmute yourself and read some of those?
Definitely. So there's some online yoga classes going on. There's multiple walks a day, so 30 minutes at lunch and 30 minutes at the end of the day. Family walks, online circuit training, 5 miles on a recumbent bike when the weather is bad. Virtual workouts twice a week with a personal trainer, and then there's also a little bit around, not taking sort of daily runs because working so many more hours now during the day, which I think is probably a big issue for a lot of people. Scheduling workouts and walks, and so people are moving.
Good. And this is so important, because this is more important than anything that we do. It's the foundation that helps us to be able to work the extra hours or the more hours, or to deal with the stress at home or with your jobs. This is the energy that gives us the capacity to actually do the work. And so if you can just imagine, I'm going to do a lot of comparisons. If athletes didn't take care of their physical bodies, they weren't working out, they weren't training, they weren't lifting weights, they weren't doing what they needed to do to be successful, on the field, on the court, in the pool. What would that look like? That is the basic foundation for them to be able to actually to be there and to show up. So, please add this to your lives, because this is the basic foundation before we can take care of anything else that is actually, on the list here. The second one is really taking care of our emotional capacity. And, as an elite basketball coach and training elite athletes and teams, as I said before, I had a strength and conditioning coach that did all of the physical training for my athletes. And as a coach, I did a lot of the emotional and also the mental part of the game, because that's about 80% of people being successful. That internal climate that we have going on, that emotional capacity on really, how are we feeling? When you talk to the successful and the most elite athletes, you'll hear them describe when they are performing at their best, that I was feeling, and see if any of these words resonate with you on performing at your best. I felt calm. I felt challenged. I felt confident. I felt engaged. I felt motivated. I felt in control, and I was having fun. And that is having that emotional capacity for, no matter who rocked your world or who took your legs out from underneath you, but they felt extremely focused because they had their emotional capacity was trained, it was under control. And so this is a big part of a competency for us to have that mindset of a corporate athlete is where is our emotional capacity right now? This makes us better for our own self-talk, how we're talking to ourselves right now, on how we're actually judging others and how we are looking at others, what other people are doing or not doing or engaged, or they don't turn their cameras on, or they don't show up for meetings. So it helps us on how we're judging others or giving people the benefit of the doubt or having more empathy or understanding at this point. And it also helps us judge what's going on in our world or our environments or our companies as well, is being able to control that emotional capacity. Some of the other side of the coin, when we are not controlling that emotional capacity, is we are feeling fearful, we are resentful, we are not confident, we are not engaged, we are in bad moods, we're irritated, we're impatient, we're sad, we feel drained. And that's when we can literally, as corporate athletes, that's how we can literally be toxic for ourselves. We can be toxic for our teams and be toxic for our organization as well. And so where is our emotional capacity right now on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being the lowest and 10 being the highest? If we can just type some of those numbers in there, I just want you to do kind of a little self-check on where our emotional capacity is right now. This is when we're performing at our best. Coach Amy, can you just read some of the numbers off really quickly? You don't need to say who, but just the numbers off really quickly.
Sure. We have a lot of 7s and 8s and a few 6s.
Okay. Okay, good. Well, we all have some work to do. I could tell you that I'm not at a 10. I think, I do lots of different things around the physical health and the emotional capacity as well, but it takes more effort when we're in the middle of a crisis. And the impact of positive emotions that have on us really ignites the energy that we need for that performance management. So more of those positive emotions and celebrating wins and being innovative and creative really helps us embrace this emotional capacity. The third one is our mental strength and that mental toughness around, this is where it really gets tested, especially when we're out of maybe our comfort zone in our offices and we've been put at home to work. Where is our mental strength right now? Our focus? Where's our time management? Where is our critical thinking and our strategic thinking right now when we are thrown kind of off the wagon here? And when you think of that mental strength, when elite athletes get thrown off their game or they make a mistake, they fail, they've had a bad month, a coach like me is riding them for a while. Where is that mental strength, that focus, that determination, that time management, being able to bounce back? Where is that mental strength? And it's easy to have this type of mental strength when things are going well and you're winning and everything is clipping along. But where's our mental strength when we're losing or we can't control the things that are around us? And where is that mental strength? And I would say this goes along with some of that emotional capacity as well, as that self-talk and my business and, how do I show up and what am I thinking about myself and others as well. And that's where we need to be focusing our energy on, is that how can I strengthen my mental toughness and my mental strength through this? And as I said, the stronger we are now and the more that we can do now, just think when we go back to the new normal, or we go back to work and we're back around our people, whenever that is, just think how much you would have grown through this. And this is the hardest time to be able to build that mental strength. But just think how much further along you will be when things get back to the new normal. And the last thing I want to share is really unleashing, that spiritual side of that other core competency, and the spiritual side is around faith. It is around belief. It is around, that self-awareness, that meditation, but it's also unleashing around the purpose and also your values. And for elite athletes, it's really unleashing that spiritual side of them. And that's really the purpose of their why. Why am I playing? Why do I play this game? What are my values? And, that is the energy that is released from our deepest core. And for us to understand what that is, and this is, for us to understand this, we can do some journaling. We can do some self-awareness. We can be present. We can do some meditation. We can do some mindfulness. And this is really where our true motivation comes from, and our determination and our purpose and our resilience, because this goes to the core. And when we get to this point on our, in developing this competency to our core, then that's when our true resilience comes out, and our true mindset. And this is really what we need for executives to go day after day, quarter after quarter, new leadership, new products, new, furloughs or layoffs or everything, year after year, decade after decade, because it just doesn't stop. There is no season off. And really keeping in mind of the bigger picture. We are all in the moment now, trying to get through this moment, but if we can keep our eye on the prize, and we can have a bigger picture for, really, what this is going to mean for us, like we're going to get better through this. We're going to become more, we're going to have new products after this. We're going to get better. We're going to be tougher. We're going to be closer together as a team. We're going to be a stronger organization. And if we can keep that mindset on really what our purpose is, on why we do what we do, we help people, and really what our values are through this, that is a great motivator for all of us to really develop, and really developing that mindset of a corporate athlete. If we don't have this part, if we don't have this one part as a corporate athlete, there will definitely be burnout and fatigue and feelings of unfulfillment, because we haven't developed this to our core. We haven't developed on like my purpose and really why I'm doing what I'm doing. And so I would say, we've got a foundation of our physical health. That is the base. That is what gets me on the floor. But it's all of the other three core competencies is really how I manage my performance. Yes, I want to get on the floor. I want to be part of the team. I've got to have my physical health. That is just the foundation, but we need that emotional capacity to be able to manage that stress, to have those positive emotions that really fuel us. We need to have that mental strength around ourselves and what we're thinking, and that self-talk around ourselves, around others, and then really what's going on around our environment as well. And then we had to develop that core competency that is the deepest part of us. That core competency is really going back to that purpose and those values, and we really can develop all of these. And this is what keeps gas in the gas tank. This is what fuels us. This is what keeps us from burning out, so we can perform at a high level day in and day out, because that's what's expected. And when I was actually doing some research on this, and obviously I lived it for almost 3 decades over here with elite athletes, and now I'm living it today with corporate athletes as well. It is much tougher for corporate athletes to develop this performance management. Athletes, it's like second nature, and they're not going 10, 14 hours a day, day after day after day for 30 years. Corporate athletes need to have this skill set more than elite athletes. And elite athletes have coaches. They have coaches for their teams. Many executives don't have coaches. They don't have coaches for their teams. So we've got to be able to do these things and wrap our mind around this. We have to wrap our arms around this so we can really focus and develop these on our own. And that's what helps us perform at such a high level and keep from burning out and really developing into that corporate athlete that we've always wanted to be. So we are successful for ourselves, for our families, for our organizations, and also for our teams. And so I would like to take some questions now from all of you, or any comments before we end the session today. And just type those questions, or actually unmute yourselves. So I would love to hear your voices.
I have a question. First of all, thank you. You know, I think your voice has been very important for me personally, and I share it with my team as much as I can during these times, so thank you. What I'm finding a big challenge professionally right now is keeping up that morale, that focus on the mission, that, you know, that number 4 that you were talking about in the midst of layoffs and just this uncertainty. How do we keep that team together when so many elements are really pulling our teams apart? It's a tough one.
It is, there's everybody's going through something like that. And I think you have to go back to that communication as a leader and connecting with your team. If it's every day for 20 minutes, and it's, once a week isn't even enough to connect with your teams. I know teams, whether they're sports teams or they're corporate teams, that they are connecting every single day, whether it's 10 minutes or it's an hour, to be able to have that connectedness, to have that collaboration and that engagement. And people sometimes they just need to see your eyes and you're listening to them. But I think for you to continue communication, making sure that people are doing okay, to stay positive, and also to keep their eyes on, just kind of that bigger picture, and knowing that we are going to get through this. And we're going to be better because of this. We can only control what we can control. And, talking about some of those positive things that, I'm sure your organization is also trying to maybe repurpose people. I know there's a lot of people that are trying to repurpose people where, hey, we don't have anything for you to do right now because, we can't do any of that right now. But we're going to put you over here to have you do some of these other skills just so we can keep you as part of the organization and we can continue to pay people. So people are being extremely creative right now, putting the people first on how we can continue helping that. But I would say communication, stay engaged, continue being positive and upbeat as a leader. You might be feeling the same thing, but that can't come out to your team as well. And, and just expect people are going to have some bad days, and it's okay. I had a client the other day that, there's always that one person on the team. And she gave that individual, a week off. Just take a week off. We all handle these situations different. And there's things that are going on at home or with extended family members around COVID-19 or stresses. And sometimes we just have to understand that people are all going through different experiences and different things in their lives. And just gave them a week off. And, the rest of the team was like, what are you doing? Why are you treating, them differently? But everybody's got to have an understanding around, that everybody's different. Everybody is having a different experience through this, and just being able to be, that type of leader that has that empathy and that is listening as well. Anybody else have a question today? Or any comments or anything that has worked for you that you'd like to share? Any more questions, Coach Amy?
There was a great comment around, someone commented that the corporate communications team reached out to some individuals to have them record a video with a positive message. And then they post them on the internet homepage to bring positivity to the organization. And I just think it's another great way to kind of lift that morale. So that's a great suggestion. Another one, the employees really appreciated the executive team reaching out to them, not to talk about work, but to talk about their mental well-being. So to keep it sort of, more on the personal side, and that connection, and having those upper level leaders reach out and take a personal interest, I'm sure makes a huge difference.
Yeah. And I have a client that their entire C-suite, they split up, and there's only 5 people that are in the C-suite. They split up their entire organization of people, and they went, and for 2 weeks, that's all they did was make calls. They called everybody in the company just to see how their families were doing, see how they were doing. And that's how they spent 2 weeks, was calling their people. Our people are our biggest asset, to our companies. It's not necessarily what we're doing, and the company's still running, and the company was in great shape and still full capacity, and everybody's going 100 miles an hour. But the entire C-suite stopped exactly what they were doing, whether they were the CEO, COO, CFO, chief sales officer. They all stopped, and they were all calling their list of people, checking in on them. And because that's the most important thing that they could be doing at this point, is showing that they cared, and picking the phone up. And the other thing about the video is that's a great idea about the video. And there's if you putting videos together of just different people saying a different message. So now you just don't have one voice, but you got a few different voices as well, is just something that is very creative as well. So you just don't have one voice, but you have collaboration, you have teamwork, you have engagement, where now you've got 10 different people that are giving that message and putting that on your website as well. So that just shows teamwork, and not just one person that's being positive. But there's a lot of things that people are doing, throughout this. I've got some clients that are doing a heck of a job, and they're leading through this. And I've got other clients that are struggling because of being just not used to working from home or connecting with people. And so people need a lot of help with everything that we're all going through right now. So I wish everybody the best of luck. And we're going to be with you. Amy and I are going to be with you here until we get through this. Just to give little tidbits of the things that we're all learning. I'm learning so much through this. I am shifting. I'm navigating. I'm learning a lot about myself. I'm learning a lot about the people that are around me. I'm also learning as well, and I'm sure everybody is learning about their business, on how we all need to shift and do things a little bit differently moving forward now, and even when we get through all of this as well. And if we're not learning anything, then we're wasting this time. We're wasting this time, and we're going to look back and say, these 2 months or these 3 months that we were, out of the office, we didn't get better. I didn't get better. We didn't get better. And our organization didn't get better. And, I would say to myself, shame on me that I didn't take advantage of this time, to take that next step. So everybody, good luck. We are here for all of you. If you want to reach out and you have other questions, we are here for all of you, and we will see you next week.